Welcome to Markets Now. I'm Michelle Rourke with Scott Varlig with Coima Varlig. Grains are all in negative territory this morning, heading into the big WASDE report over in the livestock. Hogs seeing a bounce, and cattle futures open lower, but they're coming back nicely. And Scott, let's just talk a little bit about that. We've had a correction in the market this week. We've seen a little rollover in cash and box beef. So are we getting that all worked in, do you think?
It's been making me a little bit dizzy here, some of these cattle trades that we're having, and thanks for having me for sure. We're trading a lot of wild news here this week. I think it's to start. We had some issues at a couple different plants here and there. One down for a couple days. Then Dakota City had some issues. They were back on is what the sound is, and then it was okay. Then there's another plant, rumor circulating. So it just feels like we've got this market that we know is at really high levels. We saw the box beef break this week, and I think anytime you see a sign of weakness, whether it's the box beef or an issue, plant issue, these futures can quickly head lower because they're nervous. I think they respect that they're at some pretty high levels, and there's that group waiting to sell this market. So the cash news is still hanging on pretty good. I think that's kind of what's pulling us back. I mean, there's that expectation that, this thing could really fall out of bed now. And 198 bids renewed. I think the disappointing thing would have been all the $2 asking prices. They were holding strong. They did start to buckle over the last 2 days and started to take the 198. So I think it's just lining up with where we're at on the calendar a little bit. You're starting to think, okay, this demand does head into a more sluggish part of the year. You get the heat, you get, out of some of the peak demand season. So a little bit more apt to maybe take some of that cash, and maybe that's the theme that we see. We can start to pull that cash down slowly and get it to the futures would be my thought. We're closer to the futures anyway. We've got this excellent basis here yet. Was happy that we got the 198. I think that's a great trade. These cattle make these guys a lot of money at these prices. So it's still hard to pass, and you want to take those bids there. Right.
So 198 in the north, what is the south generally traded at this week?
The sparse numbers you see, I felt good about some of the, low 190 kind of numbers, 190, 191 on some of these different stockyard reports. So I think that's okay. I mean, they've closed the gap some, not enough. But there lies why the futures have had to stay quite discount to these northern prices, because the south has been lagging behind for that period of time there.
No doubt. We also had a few backstories about maybe a bird flu variant in the UK that might be more susceptible for humans. Do you think the market tried to trade that as well this week or not?
Yeah, heard a lot about it. People talking about it. I don't know if that was the leading factor for me. We've had a lot of this story, the bird flu story that keeps on giving. We've got to twist it into another direction, and that's always going to be scary and overhanging the market if that would get out of hand. And it's not leaving the news media. They haven't given it up yet, and there's still some worry about it. So we're going to always have to monitor it and see if it's going to keep evolving, but that never helps the market at all. But for me, I thought, possibly some of these plans being down, the time of the year, that, would have been more what I thought the reasons that we broke rather than that story.
Yeah. So we said we're coming back here today, and this has looked like maybe a healthy correction in an otherwise bigger bull market. But, do you think we're going to hold here? And if we start to fall, where are you watching for support areas that we need to hold?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm struggling. We've had such a good supply bull rally, and that's what we've been talking about for years. And now getting to some rockier ground. It's starting to trade a little up and down. So I got to look at things that I like about the market. Right now we've got, open interest is pretty good levels. So there is, some traders in there. We just, waxed a bunch of open interest out of the August contract, and we still have 320,000 open interest. That makes me feel good. we've got a little bit of guts in this market and some more volume to maybe kind of hold when we need to hold. If that would start to weaken, we start to see some severe liquidation, that's when you get a little bit more worried. So I think there's a little bit of backbone here, to try to hold it at some of these levels. So as far as a price, we've got a couple dollars down for a halfway retracement, like on the D's cattle contract. You get it into the low 180s, and that's going to be some support to look out for some of those deferred. So we're within a couple dollars of some of those levels. And another thing I like is, we've got feeder auctions happening. You got, Bassett barbecue sale never disappoints. Kudos to those guys. And, you've got some of these video auctions, and prices are great. Optimism is still there. Some record basis on some of these feeder calf sales. So they're still bringing great prices, and for good reason. We know that supply is tight. Once heifer retention starts, which we think it's starting to happen with the cheaper feed, with the depleted numbers in the cow herd. Interest rates are still a little bit of a problem there, but I think that has started. So that's going to have feed yards tripping over themselves just a little harder, looking for inventory, in my opinion.
You bet. And like you said, with the tight supplies, you don't feel like you can fall too far, especially with the futures discount in the fed cattle market. Weights are still a little bit of a problem, though. I guess the warmer weather, is that slowing that down at all or not?
Yes, the weights are going to come down with the weather for one. Yep, that's what it can do when we get to 100 degrees, and it really depends on how cool you can get at night. For that animal, they can handle some heat during the day as long as they have that chance to cool down at night, because their core body temperature doesn't really reach a peak low until about 5 a.m. It takes them all night to cool down. So watching the night temperatures is pretty important there. And as far as the weight goes, we've got excellent prices up front. It's hard to pass some of these bids, like I said earlier. But what I'm worried about in the long term is if we do buy a bunch of feeder calves that break even at $2 and we never get that opportunity to really hedge them, then that leaves a producer fighting the market, and we have some cheap feed. So as we get further out past this heat, past the summer, that could be the band-aid that starts to fix some of this tighter supply. Yet if we all fight the market and have cheap corn, then we're going to put the weight on the cattle. So my long-term, looking at the deferreds, trying to find a way to look for some long-term protection out there. I'm respecting that this market's at a good level. I know those prices don't work for the feeders you're buying, but we have a lot of risk hanging out there. So I'm really trying to be cognizant and aware of that.
Sure. So the hog market trying to bounce this morning off of new contract lows that we set here this week. And so, is this just some short covering activity? And do you think we can really build on it? I mean, is there enough gas in the tank to start correcting that market?
Yeah, it's been pretty beat down and has just shown a lack of follow through on any of these kind of rallies. So I just think the confidence is a little bit shattered, and the isoine prices have really started to break, and hearing of a few fire sales. So there's some that need to move. So I think those are never good stories when you hear, okay, so-and-so's got some $5 isoines he's trying to move, so that's getting very cheap. And that hasn't been the up and down the road story yet, I'll say. There's been some that have been trading a lot higher than that, but those looming factors are not good on the market. And it just feels like we still have a little bit of a hangover of there's going to be a plant closing in Iowa, and you've got the California demand issues. I think this is just an overall hangover from those as well. Just a little bit of a struggle to try to grab some ground.
No doubt. And the grains, as we said, down again this morning, going into the WASDE report. Everybody leaning bearish, but man, you got to think a lot of it's already priced in here, don't you?
Well, that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, we've got, quite a bit of bearish news priced in as we're down at these levels, and we're really oversold. I think that was part of yesterday's bounce, along with, possibly some demand rumors from China. So, but we're oversold. We're at some low levels. You're not running into a bunch of selling this low. Those farmers are going to wait now, and that pressure is going to maybe let off. But the report, maybe we're going to try to hope for some big acre shifts, and generally we see a lot of them here on this report. I think there's still that hope that we can. But looking forward on this crop, we've pretty much penciled in big crop. We're getting rain. There's no issues there, and that's maybe the attitude that it's had. But we've got such a variance in when acres got planted and what got planted that there's still a little bit of uncertainty yet on what this crop could do. I mean, there's going to be a big chunk of it that's pretty good, but there's some fringe acres and there's some late planted stuff that we're unsure of the yield, and now we're getting low enough. These farmers are starting to decide, am I going to spray for fungicide or not? They might elect not to as we get to some of these lower levels here.
Yeah, we just got to get the funds to get spooked and take their foot off the gas here on the sell side. So
yeah, let's try to find a way to do that. I like that.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks for joining us. Scott Varlick with Varlick. That is Markets Now.